Hi, everyone. Welcome to Naturally Immune for Life. I hope you're all doing well today. Have an interesting post I hope you will find interesting about precision prebiotics. Do precision prebiotics restore microbial balance beyond infancy? And this was an interesting pilot study, clinical pilot, and it was tested on people with established severe forms of dysbiosis, colitis, and um, IBS, IBD, I believe, and maybe even celiac. I can't remember precisely. But human milk oligosaccharides beyond infancy, how 2 fucosyllactose may help restore the adult gut. HMOs were first thought to benefit only nursing infants. These unique carbohydrates, oh yeah, right. I have proof otherwise. They've been working on this now for 80 years or more. Um, these unique carbohydrates found naturally in breast milk help establish a healthy gut microbiome during the first months of life by feeding beneficial bacteria and supporting the developing immune system. Today, researchers are discovering that HMOs may offer important health benefits long after infancy. One HMO in particular, 2FL, is emerging as a promising nutritional tool for restoring the adult gut microbiome and improving digestive health. The human digestive tract contains trillions of microorganisms that work together to digest food, produce vitamins, strengthen the intestinal barrier, and regulate the immune system, and influence metabolism. When this complex microbial community becomes unbalanced, a condition known as gut dysbiosis develops. Beneficial bacteria decline while less desirable microbes become more abundant, contributing to inflammation and poor intestinal function. Dysbiosis has been linked to IBS, IBD, obesity, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, and many other chronic health conditions, and now that includes diabetes type 1 and cancer. Unlike most carbohydrates, 2FL is not digested by human enzymes. It passes through the stomach and the small intestine intact until it reaches the colon, where it becomes a highly selective food source for beneficial bacteria, especially bifido. These bacteria possess specialized enzymes that allow them to utilize HMOs efficiently, giving them a competitive advantage over harmful or opportunistic microbes. As bifido consume 2FL, they produce acetate and lactate, which are then used by other bacteria, beneficial bacteria, through a process called cross-feeding. And this cooperative relationship ultimately increases production of butyrate, one of the most important short-chain fatty acids in the colon. Butyrate provides fuel for colon cells, strengthens the intestinal lining, reduces inflammation, and helps regulate immune function. Because of these effects, researchers consider 2FL both bifidogenic, meaning it stimulates the growth of bifidobacteria, and butyrogenic, meaning it indirectly increases butyrate production. Researchers wanted to know whether these well-known infant benefits could also help adults suffering from chronic digestive disorders. To answer this question, they performed laboratory fermentation studies using stool samples from healthy adults and from patients with IBS and colitis. They also conducted a 6-week pilot clinical trial involving adults with chronic gastrointestinal disease. The laboratory studies produced encouraging results. Adding 2FL significantly increased populations of bifido in both healthy and diseased microbiomes. Researchers also observed growth of important butyrate producing bacteria, including Eubacterium rectale and members of the Clostridium groups. Rather than supporting only one bacterial species, now this would be the beneficial Clostridia. Rather than supporting only one bacterial species, 2FL appeared to rebuild an entire network of beneficial microorganisms that work together to maintain intestinal health. These microbial changes also altered bacterial metabolism. Acetate production increased substantially, while butyrate levels rose consistently across the study groups. This finding is particularly important because individuals with inflammatory bowel disorders often have reduced populations of butyrate-producing bacteria. Restoring butyrate production may help improve intestinal barrier function, reduce inflammation, and create a healthier environment for beneficial microbes. The human pilot study produced similarly promising findings. Adults with IBS or ulcerative colitis consumed a nutritional formula containing 4 grams of 2FL each day for 6 weeks. By the end of the study, participants reported improved digestive comfort and better gastrointestinal quality of life. Stool analyses showed significant increases in bifido and Bacillobacterium prosnitzi, one of the most beneficial butyrate-producing bacteria found in the human intestine. Fecal butyrate concentrations also increased, confirming that the microbial improvements observed in the laboratory were occurring in living individuals. Researchers are now exploring whether HMOs can influence health beyond the digestive tract. In one recent study investigated LNT, another abundant HMO, combined with the probiotic bifido animalis lactis, MNGUP. This combination, known as a symbiotic, pairs a selective prebiotic with a probiotic capable of utilizing it efficiently. In a mouse model of obesity, the symbiotic consistently outperformed either the HMO or the probiotic alone. Treated animals gained less weight despite eating similar amounts of food, suggesting that improvements resulted from healthier metabolism rather than reduced caloric intake. They also demonstrated better blood sugar control, lower cholesterol and triglyceride levels, reduced liver fat accumulation, and improved insulin sensitivity. The symbiotic also reshaped the gut microbiome. Beneficial bacteria such as Akkermansia, Leukenstock, and Alistipase increased, while bacteria associated with obesity and inflammation declined. Short-chain fatty acid production, particularly butyrate, also increased, helping strengthen the intestinal barrier, reducing leakage of inflammatory bacterial toxins into the bloodstream. Although obesity research was performed in mice and requires Now, these are two different studies, okay? So make sure you understand that. One was for obesity and one was for gut disorders. This requires confirmation in human clinical trials. It reinforces an important principle. HMOs continue to influence the gut microbiome long after infancy. Rather than feeding all bacteria equally, HMOs selectively nourish beneficial organisms that have co evolved with humans since birth, if you were breastfed, and since the origin of mankind. This precision approach helps restore a healthier microbial ecosystem capable of producing metabolites that support digestion, immunity, and metabolic health. As our understanding of the microbiome continues to grow, HMOs are becoming recognized as much more than infant nutrients. They represent a new generation of precision prebiotics that may help restore microbial balance in adults suffering from chronic gastrointestinal disorders and metabolic disease. While additional clinical studies are still needed, current research suggests that 2FL and other HMOs could become valuable components of comprehensive gut restoration programs designed to rebuild the microbiome naturally and support lifelong health. And I just want to insert here now they are up to 7 synthesized HMOs. So this is the new gold rush in medicine, which I already knew that since 19 since 2004 at least. Bovine colostrum improves the intestinal environment. Colostrum contains IgGs, lactoferrin, growth factors, milk oligosaccharides, glycoproteins, and antimicrobial peptides that reduce inflammation and strengthen the intestinal barrier. As intestinal inflammation decreases, conditions become more favorable for anaerobic bacteria that produce butyrate. Bovine colostrum can shift the microbiome toward butyrate producers. Animal studies have shown that bovine colostrum supplementation increases bacteria associated with short chain fatty acid production, including members of the families. And then there's a list of bacteria that I'm not even going to try to pronounce, but one is Roseburia, which you might have already heard of. These are among the major butyrate producing organisms in the human colon. And I am including a button for you to watch a video from CBS about a gastroenterologist saying that gut bacteria may affect Parkinson's, anxiety, and depression. And I don't choose to support the crossfeeders, so I'm not going to share mainstream media, but it's there if you want to watch it and help convince whoever you think you might be able to influence. So I have a few FAQs here. Why do I promote HMOs now? How do I know these are all malnutrition diseases? I want to talk a minute about LBPs, living biotherapeutic products. and how interesting infographic that I saw from Underground Health Solutions, and how I know how to help you prevent this from becoming another racket. Well, first of all, why do I promote? I knew 10 years ago there was not enough bovine colostrum on the planet to meet the increasing demand. Right now, that 90% non breastfed children in 2005 are 21 years old, and just going by statistics alone, they are they are at the age where they are going to start becoming parents. And we already know from the 2005 study, bifido populations are practically non existent, and that you can't give what you don't have. So, this will be generational decline of severe acute malnutrition syndromes that only get worse with each generation. So, I know that this these biosynthetics are going to increasingly become necessary because there aren't enough natural substances. However, I do prefer to teach the natural way to produce these synthetic substances the same way they do in a lab. So, what was interesting, I began looking at these living biotherapeutics and HMOs, and when I read the Underground Health Solutions, I said, um, I wonder how much these are going to cost when you go through the oligarch door. And I guarantee they are going to cost 10 times as much being administered by a doctor or a gastroenterologist. So in some instances, they are being transplanted, and that requires a sterile procedure, and that's going to increase costs substantially. You cannot get these organisms on the market right now, but they are in development. There are actually some, I did a quick search. There are some FDA approved biotherapeutics, supposedly called Baust and Rebiota. Um, I'm sure they are that everyone has different regulatory conditions on how they are to be administered. And then, of course, the corporate masters are already coming out about live biotherapeutics. And let me just read you one here. Novotech, what are live biotherapeutics and how do they work? Uh, they contain a single species or consortium of live microorganisms or yeast isolated from human donors for use in the prevention, treatment, or cure of a disease or condition. They work primarily by interacting with the host's microbiome, immune system, or other physiological processes in the body. Which regions are leading in live biotherapeutic clinical trials and what drives their growth. Asia Pacific, very good reason for that. They are on like fifth generation of SAM, severe acute malnutrition, followed by North America and Europe, reflecting a global expansion of this emerging field. Developments in oral delivery are aimed at protecting the products from degradation in the GI tract. They're increasingly being integrated into combination therapies, particularly in areas such as cancer, gastrointestinal disorders, metabolic diseases, neurological disorders, and infectious diseases. And what's the regulatory landscape? And how does it vary globally? LBPs are regulated through CBER by the US FDA and follow the BLA pathway. I don't know what that means. Europe, they are regulated by the Committee for Medicinal Products. Japan, LBPs are generally classified as biological drugs through the Pharmaceuticals and Medical Devices Agency, PMDA. Genetically modified LBPs differ, with Japan and Europe expecting stricter requirements for environmental safety and risk assessment. So that is Novotech. And yeah. So this is what I said for this interesting graphic here. I basically say sue them because I could literally prove this in 5 minutes, and I generally don't go here. Let me see if I can open this somewhere else to make it larger. Or wait a minute. The truths about why your generation got sicker following the rules. You switched to margarine. Margarine caused the heart disease butter was blamed for. You avoided eggs for 30 years. You ate 6 to 11 servings of grains daily, which it's not the grains, it's the fact that the wheat germ is destroyed. You drank skim milk. You replaced lard with vegetable oil. You took antacids for heartburn. You trusted low-fat everything, and they replaced fat with sugar, and then heart disease exploded. You followed the rules. You followed every rule perfectly. The rules were written by the industries selling the replacements, and your generation became the sickest in history while being the most obedient. And then that's from Underground Health Solutions, which I am also in Underground Health Solutions. And I'm just saying, just sue them because it's about smug elites who destroy food so they can profit from medicine. And that's actually been proven with infant formula by Henry Nestle, founded his company in 1866. By 1870, it was being sold on 5 continents. By the 1880s, Austrian pediatrician Theodore Escherich noticed that breastfed babies had completely different gut bacteria than bottle-fed babies. Around the same time, French chemist As Eschbach discovered that human milk contained a strange unknown carbohydrate fraction that didn't exist in cow's milk. It was called women's milk sugar. By 1979, the first artificial MO was produced, and once the chemical structures were mapped, laboratory chemists set out to build them without a human body. In 1979, scientists achieved the first recorded pure chemical synthesis of an HMO, constructing a structure called LNT, which I just read about, from scratch in a lab in 1979 to present. Companies like Glycom first scaled. And I have the proof of that right in my About page with the with where'd my page go? With the graphic showing that by 1970 they were well aware that breastfed infants were healthier than non-breastfed infants, and the sales of infant formula in the US exploded. So, as I said, they that's what they do. They create the problem and then they profit from the medicine and they collude in the hype. So where do you think mainstream media gets their paycheck? They get it from food and pharmaceuticals. And that's why I actually used to work for them, so I know whereof I speak. Um, and I could probably go back and find the exact advertising where this began to happen between 1960 and 1980. Pediatricians and microbiologists uncovered the health benefits of breastfeeding, and then from that point on, infant formula sales went through the roof. So I do know whereof I speak because I did work for them. And they and it's the same with this. You know what they're going to do? They're going to instead of being an honor, the patent system is that instead of this being an honorary designation of naming a discovery probiotic after yourself, what they're going to do is they're going to claim ownership and then they're going to demand a royalty. So every time this probiotic is used in a product, somebody's going to have to pay someone else a royalty. And that's been going on now for decades upon decades. And that's why I say the patent system is dead. And I did work for these people, and I know that's how they think. Some of them I worked for demanded a royalty every time a block of cheese crossed the street. And that is not trade, that is a racket. So, okay, everyone, that's this week's. They're both a racket. And that's why you could sue them because food rackets aren't immunized like pharmaceuticals. However, they might be in the US, but I do not think so. I do. Food rackets are not immunized against prosecution, and I guarantee right now there are probably some hungry law sharks forming class action lawsuits against the entire industry. And that's also why you're only going to see studies go so far. They're gonna have a cutoff. They're gonna have a cutoff after a certain number of weeks because they know how far they can go before they incriminate themselves. Just like I guarantee they know the line where they crossed from into beyond reasonable doubt, and they aren't going to cross it because they aren't going to incriminate themselves. They're going to position themselves as the new elites and the new saviors of the world after causing the problems they already caused and profited from. So that's how it works. And I don't know. Some people kind of hate you because you know that's how it works, but whatever. I'm capitalism. I'm a sworn enemy of capitalism, and that's never going to change. But at the same time, as I said, I'm a radical realist. I know there aren't enough gastroenterologists. I know there isn't enough bovine colostrum on the planet. There probably isn't enough milk on the planet to extract these HMOs if they could even do it that way, and they can't because they have to be purified. So, okay, everyone, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you next time. You have a great day and a great week. Thank you again. Bye.